Hi everyone, my name is Nancy Kaufman. I'm the immediate past CEO of the National Council of Jewish Women and a member of the International Board of the Alliance for Middle East Peace. So I'm wearing both hats here today, and I just want to welcome you all and thank you for being here to discuss a rather important topic, which is women in peace building in the Middle East, and something that I know is near and dear to many of our hearts. I should mention that the three organizations represented here, Kari, who's with the Alliance for Middle East Peace, and she'll get a formal introduction by our moderator, Daphna Hacker, Professor Daphna Hacker, who is the chair of the board of the Israel Women's Network. Kari is your colleague and friend who works in the U.S. For Alliance for Middle East Peace. Daphna is the former chair of the Women and Gender, NCJW Women and Gender Studies program at Tel Aviv University, and all different other things, and a good friend and colleague. And Hanan is the head of Itach-Ma'aki, the co-director of Itach-Ma'aki, which is Women Lawyers for Social Justice. So you couldn't ask for three better people. I really appreciate, we're going to invite you to take the cards and write questions as people are speaking, so that after the panel we can answer the questions. So with that short introduction, I am going to turn it over to my dear young friend, Stephanie Rodgers, who I will take a little credit for getting on the NCJW board once upon a time, and who is now the vice president of the board of National Council of Jewish Women. So take it away, Stephanie.
Awesome. Thank you. Is this loud enough? No, maybe, so. Okay. Thank you, Nancy, so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at 6:30 on a Friday evening during Purim and all of the other things. So we appreciate your time, and we are glad that you could join us today. It is a privilege to welcome you to this important conversation on women's leadership and peace building. Before we begin, please make sure that your cell phones are silenced. Tonight we find ourselves at the well-timed intersection of Shabbat, Purim, and Ramadan, holy observances with common themes on women's power in fostering community and peace. In the Jewish tradition, Shabbat is a moment to create space and peace and community. As we wish each other a peaceful Sabbath, or Shabbat Shalom, the traditional candle blessing that we typically say is led by women and invites peace not just into the home, but into the world. And on the holiday of Purim, which we're celebrating today, it's centered around the story of Esther, a woman whose courage and leadership saved her people. Her story is a testament to the power of women stepping into positions of influence and using their voices to create a more just and peaceful world. And in the Muslim tradition, Ramadan is a month of reflection, tolerance, and spiritual renewal. But it is also a time for strengthening communal ties and building bridges. Ramadan reminds us that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but an active process of trust in embracing the other. In this spirit, women play a crucial role in building peace, whether it's uniting families around the iftar table, fostering community dialogue, or leading initiatives around charity or social justice. Women are the connectors, strengthening the foundation of peace and leading the way towards a more just and unified future. We recognize that we are at a pivotal moment in this crucial work of creating peace, as women, children, and families in Israel and in Gaza continue to suffer in the face of this ongoing war. Many, including many of us here this evening, have felt the immeasurable pain and loss in the midst of this war, and we continue to mourn the innocent lives lost both in Israel and in Gaza, and we pray for peace. That is why tonight's conversation on women's leadership and peace building is so important. Tonight we will have discussion with our esteemed panelists to examine the unique perspective women bring to diplomacy, the barriers they face, and how we can work together to bring women's voices to the decision-making table to ensure lasting peace. I will ask several questions, and then we will leave some time for question and answer. Everybody should have a note card on your chair. If you have a question, please feel free to write it, and you can raise your hand, and our NCJW staff, Talia and Darcy, will come and collect them from you. And now, I'm here to introduce our amazing panel because they are far more important than I am. So first, we have Professor Daphna, who is the chairwoman of the Israel Women's Network. Daphna is a prominent Israeli feminist leader and activist committed to advancing the status of women. She serves as an expert member on the UN Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination against Women, and she is a professor of law and women and gender studies at Tel Aviv University. Next, we have Hanan Alsanah, who is the co-executive director of Itach-Ma'aki, Women's Lawyers for Social Justice. She is a human rights lawyer, feminist, and a social activist from Beersheba, Israel. Hanan is the first Bedouin woman to represent her community at the UN Committee for the Elimination of Discrimination against Women, and the first Bedouin woman to lead a political party in Israel. And last but not least, we have Kari Reid, the U.S. Director of the Alliance for Middle East Peace. She works to implement the organization's worldwide initiatives, including the establishment of a multi-million-dollar international fund for Israeli-Palestinian peace. Kari works in Washington, D.C. for the past 15 years as a foreign policy professional and nonprofit leader. And before we begin, I want to name that this is a difficult conversation on a difficult topic, and we are all here in good faith and a shared commitment to build a path to peace. I ask that we all approach this conversation with a generous and open spirit and respect for our panelists and each other. So I want to thank all of you for being here, and I am very honored to sit amongst these amazing women who bring amazing resumes and a significant amount of information. So with that, I'm going to kick it off with a question to Kari. Let me change my papers here. So today we want to examine the UN Resolution 1325, which mandates women's inclusion in leadership roles in all matters relating to peace and security. So Kari, can you dive into what UN Resolution 1325 is and why it is such an important tool for us to be aware of and to use in this moment?
Thank you. Can you hear me? All right, great. So first, before I begin, I just want to say a big thanks to NCJW for organizing this tremendous event and for the opportunity to speak with these remarkable women. So thank you all. So to your question, are you sure you can hear me? Okay, great, okay.
Speak louder.
Here, how about this? Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So to your question about UN Security Resolution 1325. This resolution is so important because it has the power to change the way that we all approach peace processes. It was passed 25 years ago. I'm sure you've heard that this week in many of these panels. And it calls for women to be included in leadership roles in peace and security, and also recognizes that for peace to be truly sustainable and effective, it must involve everyone, particularly women. So this resolution addresses two very critical issues. First, the disproportionate impact of violent conflict on women and girls. And second, the essential role that women play in conflict resolution, peace building, and post-conflict recovery. So why is this resolution so important? Why are we celebrating it 25 years later? So let's start with the first point. Women and girls are not just victims of conflict. They're often the primary caregivers, the providers, and the ones who bear the brunt of violence, displacement, and societal breakdown. War impacts them in ways that are not always visible in the headlines, but are deeply impactful. So we see rape as a weapon of war, forcible displacement, and increased domestic violence. These are just a few of the many ways that women and girls suffer during conflict. UN Resolution 1325 directly addresses this unequal burden and calls for the protection of women and girls in conflict zones. But I think a really important point that we can't lose sight of is that it goes beyond just addressing the harm that women face. It's about recognizing the power women hold in shaping peace processes. So women have long played critical roles in their communities, even when they've been pushed to the sidelines in formal peace processes. And that leads to the second component of UN Resolution 1325. And that is the critical role that women should and already do play in conflict resolution and peace building. And studies show that when women are included in peace negotiations, peace deals are 35% more likely to last at least 15 years. But why does this happen? What is it about women's involvement that makes a peace agreement more sustainable? Well, we know that the experiences of men and women in war are often different. Women experience war not just as combatants, but as caregivers, mothers, daughters, community leaders. And their perspectives on the causes of conflict and the needs of the survivors and the ways to build lasting peace are rooted in all different kinds of experiences. So including women in peace negotiations leads to broader representation of community perspectives and also really helps to promote broader buy-in throughout the entire community. And this helps to make peace agreements much more durable and much more likely to last. And women's participation doesn't just increase the likelihood of reaching an agreement, it also strengthens the components of the agreement itself. So research finds that when women are at the table, the peace agreements tend to address not just the political issues, but also the social and economic issues that are vital for lasting peace. So you asked as well about, why is this urgent now when we look at conflicts like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? I mean, as many of us know, the attacks by Hamas on Israel on October 7th, the ongoing conflict in Gaza has worsened an already incredibly dire situation, especially for women. We know that these events led to several instances of gender-based violence, including sexualized violence on October 7th, as well as ongoing violence in Gaza, where the conditions for women and girls are quite harsh. There's quite a bit of food scarcity of water in Gaza, making it hard for people to maintain their basic hygiene. And this is especially risky for all people, but especially for people like pregnant women and children. Tragically, the violence in the region has killed many women peace builders, including several of our colleagues and friends. So for example, the Hamas massacre on October 7th claimed the lives of 3 members of an Israeli peace-building organization called Women Wage Peace, including the organization's founder, Vivian Silver. I know many of you in the room knew Vivian personally, and her loss is deeply felt by all of us who shared her vision of a peaceful and just world. At the same time, tragically, 27 Palestinian members of a Palestinian peace-building group called Women of the Sun have been killed in Gaza. And even in the face of these immense losses and the profound grief that I know so many of us feel, both of these organizations, the women who comprise these organizations, they get up every day and they continue their work together. They have been united in their quest and desire to bring Israeli and Palestinian women together to advocate for peace, security, and a better future for their kids and for the generations to come. So women like Vivian, those who lost their lives in Gaza, and countless other women civil society leaders, they didn't just want to end the fighting. They wanted to build a future where communities could live side by side in peace and dignity. And it's a vision that is missing from so many formal peace talks today, not just in this context, but around the world. So if we truly want to end the cycles of violence, we need to make sure women's voices are heard, not just as victims, but as leaders. And I would call on all of us to honor Vivian's legacy, making sure that the next peace deal includes the voices of those who are often overlooked. And that is why, in my view, UN Resolution 1325 is so important. So thank you for that important question.
Today, it's really important. I think you gave us a lot of information to jump off from. So that leads us right into our next topic. We know that when women are excluded from the table, as you said, there have been countless opportunities right now where peace and policy processes around the world and where women have been excluded, and everybody loses when we're not included. So Daphna, the next question is for you. What does it mean to apply a gender lens in situations of war and peacemaking? How are women being impacted by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and are their voices being heard at this time?
So thank you, and I think Kari also already started to highlight the way that war is gendered and gendering. And unfortunately, we have experienced for more than a year a very close insight into these questions. And I think, first of all, when I say to you, war, as feminist women, when I tell you there is a war, what comes to your head? What are the what are the feelings that you feel? Go ahead.
Violence.
Violence, what else? Death. Terror. What else? Sexual violence. What else? Hopelessness. Displacement. Destruction, right? I think that when we think about war, all we can see is the loss, is the destruction. So the first question we ask when we are facing the opportunity of war as feminist women is, can that be prevented? We understand that much must be put into the hope, the potential, any potential, the smallest chance that this horror can be prevented. And we feel it in our body. We don't have to be educated. We don't have to have experience. It's our intuition. The first intuition when we think about war is, how can we prevent it? Because we understand that once it starts, it's going to be too late for many. It's going to be too little for many. And so I think the first gender lens outcome is, please try to avoid it. We are dedicated to lives. And the destruction of war, and again, as we see now in Israel and in Palestine, is overwhelming. It's the tragedy is just, we see it every day. So families are destroyed, and homes are destroyed, and communities are destroyed, and nations are destroyed. The scale of the current conflict is really something that I think in neither sides we ever saw. Second is the front, is the actual battle. So we have to remember that men still carry the biggest weight, even if many of them don't think about it, at least not in the beginning. They are there, and they are the first to be killed, to be traumatized, to be wounded. But in Israel, it was the first time that women participated in combat. And when we look at statistics in my university, in Tel Aviv University, we see that 1/3 of reserved soldiers, those that are called when they are older than 21, are female students. We never had that before. It was the first time in Israeli history in which women were active soldiers in Gaza, behind enemy border. So now we have women who have witnessed combat, or who've been, I have a research assistant that for over a year served as reserve and was part of the war actively for a year. She needs help. You cannot go through this experience and come out the same person. Third, women lose what is most dear to them. I have a PhD student who lost her husband on October 7th. And she has now 3 kids she has to raise as a widow. Mothers lose their sons. When there's a soldier wounded, as you said, it would usually be the mother who will, put her life on hold and dedicate all her life now to her son, or a wife that has to care for her male spouse. And we know now, we haven't been aware of that for years, circles of violence, but now we know that so many women have to go on living with a wounded person in his soul. So he's screaming at night and he's violent. And one of the reports that you have, the blue one, okay, it's a new survey that the Israel Women's Network conducted, showing that among couples in which one of the partners were served in reserve, the violence is 3 times higher than in couples with no partner in reserves. And when both of them served in the army during this conflict, 8 times higher the intimate violence at home, which wasn't there before. The stress that you come back with to your intimate relations is really taking its toll. Another dimension, gender dimension, is that all other issues are set aside. So are we going to talk about gender equality now? And believe me, in Israel, we have a lot to talk about when we talk about gender equality. We have 30% pay gap. We have women's exclusion. We have how do you say תקרת זכוכית? פתאום נגמר לי the glass ceiling, thank you. You see, I lost words because who cares about the glass ceiling? When I'm not joking. I mean, this is the situation. We are always told, oh, we can't deal with that now. We are at war. And indeed, when we are at war, we are at the survival mode. So all our struggles for women's equality are pushed aside. And resources. When you have to invest so much resources in war, your budget is gone. You cannot do amazing things for equality because you don't have the funds. So for all these reasons, women have a direct and strong interest for diplomatic solutions. But they are not around the decision-making table. And you ask their voices heard, the answer is no. And believe me, it's the same in Hamas, right? Hamas is not asking Palestinian women in Gaza, oh, do you want to take part in the Hamas government? That's not the case. But even in Israel, we're supposed to be a democratic country, right? So we have fewer ministers than before. We have what is called the small cabinet that runs the war, no woman at all. We have a larger war cabinet with 14 members, 1 woman. Among the chief executives of the governmental ministries, we have 1 woman and 29 men. So this government did not nominate women into decision making. And again, the Israel Women's Network just won a wonderful Supreme Court decision 2 weeks ago saying to the government, you have to nominate women as chief executives. And a week later, the government nominates another 4 men. So on top of everything, we are in this middle of this democratic crisis, which here in the US, welcome to our party. What do you do when the government refuses to obey a Supreme Court decision that says, no, you have to have women around the decision table? And in front of this horrible disregard of our views of equality, of our right to be part of all these critical decisions, we see women who saved Israel on October 7th. Civil society saved the country because the government did not function. And women were at the front of that battle. So we just had a wonderful competition. We called it was established during COVID because the Universal Beauty Pageant competition arrived to Israel on COVID. They got special permission to arrive and cross the border because it's really a crucial competition. So the previous chair of the Israel Women's Network thought, we have to do something. And ever since, each year, we call it Miss Fix the Universe competition. And we ask women to nominate themselves or a friend women who are really doing something for the society. And this year the theme, of course, was the war. And we had 250 women participating in this competition, and it was so hard to choose because women established in the Negev, Bedouin and Israel and Jewish women established this civil emergency center that sent food to evacuee families. And women established all kinds of projects to assist soldiers who came back from the front, or even feeding soldiers, if you can believe it. And really tens and tens of projects in which women, again, put their life on hold and gave all that they could to save the country at this horrible crisis. I want to say a final word on that issue. What I have personally learned during these years, and I've been around for, I don't know, a quarter of a century, I no longer fight only for women around the decision table making. I'm fighting for feminist women around the decision making table. If you agree, I don't have to explain.
Daphna, thank you so much for that. Hanan, I'd love to turn it to you now. We know that Itach-Ma'aki, the organization you represent, has been instrumental in advocating for the implementation of Resolution 1325 in the case of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Can you tell us a bit about your efforts, any successes and obstacles that you faced?
Do you mind if I can speak?
You can, by all
Okay.
means, come on over.
Because I want to see the
It doesn't.
here.
Thank you.
مرحبا بوريم سماح ورمضان كريم. Thank you, Stephanie, and I would like to use the opportunity to thank NCJW and particularly Talia. Where are you? Thank you so much, Talia. Thank you. We really appreciate for hosting us this week and for facilitating this important conversation. That could not be more relevant while we are seeing the ceasefire agreement seem to hopeless. And are marking International Women's Day, which such poor representation, as you mentioned, Professor Daphna, of women in decision making this year. Let me introduce for you my organization. It's an Arab women organization, Lawyer for Social Justice. We are work in the south and in the center and also in the north. Together, Arab and women, we are working very hard to promote the rights and voices of marginalized women in Israel. It's not only for the Jewish and the Arab, it's also the Ethiopian and the religious women also, all that who suffered from marginalization. Our goal is to pave the way toward a shared society based on the value of gender equality, equal access to justice, and the integration of gender lens into policy. We are calling integration. I don't want to read. Okay. Okay, I will try. Please try to deal with my English, but I will try. So we lead this organization together with my colleague Ella Alon. She's an amazing woman. She's working very hard to advocate for women empowerment and advise our rights in the international and national level. Itach-Ma'aki, we have been the way of our UN Security Council Resolution 1325 implementation in Israel since the very beginning. Alongside civil society partners, Itach-Ma'aki successfully advocated for Israel to include parts of UN Security Council Resolution 1325 into legislation in 2005. Israel was actually one of the first countries in the world to include parts of UN Security Council Resolution 1325. However, Israel has never developed a national action plan despite a 2014 government commitment. Itach-Ma'aki has been central to the struggle for the national action plan, both through advocacy with coalitions of civil society organizations and through legal action. Most recently, in COVID-19 our Center for Women, Peace and Security posed a successful legal challenges to the government and the Supreme Court against the all-male National Security Council COVID-19 Expert Committee, which was recreated with majority of women, include a Palestinian Arab citizen of women, and ultra-Orthodox citizen of Israel. Our petitions demanding representation of marginalized women, especially exposed the ongoing gap between the legislative promises and their implementation in Israel. As Professor Daphna mentioned also that even in the state security cabinet only includes one woman out of 14 members. Gender lenses are not mainstream in public discourse and our policy, especially in relation to peace and security. I want to talk more about now about the Arab Bedouin, the Arab women in Israel that we face a lot of discrimination because many reasons. Because we also, as a minority, as a minority, because we belong to minority that experience discrimination in areas such as the economy, employment, politics, and education. While also we are struggling with in our culture and our community with the patriarchal structure of both Arab and Israeli society as a whole. If we are talking about leadership among the Arab community, only in the 1990, the first Arab woman, Husniya Jbara, was elected to Knesset. And in the local level, only Arab one woman, Violet Khoury, was ever elected as the head of local authorities in 1997. UN Security Council Resolution 1325 demands the inclusion of women from minority groups in decision-making process. Yet, Israel's political mechanism failed to implement this, and Arab women continue to struggle for their place in public arena. Throughout the years, our Center for Women, Peace and Security has held the claim when they asked governments and diplomats to involve more women in critical decision-making on these issues, that there are not enough qualified women. So a couple of years ago, they decided something had to be done about that. And we started a groundbreaking training program with the Palestinian partners in the West Bank that they are facing daily with occupation, to train over 100 Israeli and Palestinian women to take part leading negotiation process. We selected a diverse group of women, both in terms of their professions, so we have government officials, civil society leaders, journalists, and politicians. And in terms of their background, so we have Sephardi, Ashkenazi, ultra-Orthodox, and secular Jewish women, and Palestinian citizens of Israel, and Bedouin women, and women from Ethiopian background, of all ages and from across the country. Through expert-led sessions and networking opportunities, the program gave our alumni the tools and the knowledge to break into decision-making circle and ensure gender perspective and include in the future negotiation. What has been amazing to see during the war is how our alumni have used the network and the ongoing support we have provided them with to start their own initiative. For example, one of our alumni, Ghadir Hani, is leading advocate surrounding the government's lack of policing of crime in Palestinian and Arab communities. And we supported her in leading briefings about this in several embassies. Some of our alumni have set up the 1325 forum to host public lectures and raise awareness of the resolution, and we have supporting many of our alumni in taking part in Track 2 and even Track 1.5 negotiations. We have been honored to partner with NCJW on strengthening our alumni network and really appreciate your support. Sadly, the US funding cuts have put us at risk of having to cut our programming in this area, which is disappointing and worrying at this critical moment when our alumni need our support more than ever.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hanan. That was really informative. I'd love to build on that, on what you just shared, and dive deeper into some of the work done in light of the current situation. Kari, your work, of course, has new meaning in the midst of the current war, and also faces an uncertain future in the wake of the Trump administration's order to stop all foreign aid. Can you share insight about the role of women in the peace-building community, and especially within the Palestinian civil society, and how has the U.S. funding freeze impacted your work?
Thank you. I wanted to share, so I'm the U.S. Director of the Alliance for Middle East Peace, so I'm here representing a growing network of 170 civil society peace-building organizations that work in the region, which includes hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and Israelis, alumni living and working in the region. I am not Palestinian, so I can't speak as a Palestinian, but one of the things that we try to do as a network is that we try to amplify the voices of both Israeli and Palestinian peace builders, and particularly those from the West Bank and Gaza who are unable to join us today. So to do this, I'm going to borrow some content from an event that LMIP held last week to launch a new program of ours called the Women's Leadership Network. So we had a panel that happened in Jerusalem for this event. And during that panel, we had a Palestinian woman leader who was only able to join virtually because in her, when we asked her, like, what are the challenges you face? And she shared, well, I can't be in the room with you here today because I can't get a permit to come and participate in this meeting. So that is one of the big barriers that they face in trying to do this kind of work. I also take a lot of Israeli and Palestinian peace builders up to Capitol Hill, and it's always a struggle to try to get a visa for our Palestinian participants to come and to have their voice be heard. So I feel like that is a key component as well to share on behalf of our Palestinian colleagues. Some other challenges that she pointed out with doing peace building work is she pointed out the ongoing political division between the West Bank and Gaza, which in her view has really weakened efforts to strengthen women's rights and increase their participation in the political process. And she pointed out in her remarks that there is a societal expectation that Palestinian women should only focus on their family, and that the only acceptable role is being a mother or a wife, and that really that Palestinian society tells them that their place is at home and not in politics and leadership roles. So, when pressed about this, right, I went and I reviewed her remarks in trying to prep for this panel, because I really wanted to do her remarks justice and bring her voice here. One of the things I found really remarkable about her remarks is, why does she do this work? If given all of the challenges, what is it that keeps her coming back, joining virtually on video calls and being part of this field that is, takes a lot of bravery to be a part of? And she said, this is my way to demand our rights. We deserve to be at the table, to be decision makers, and to take the lead. It's not going to be handed to us. We have to work hard for our place in government in all sectors. We are not dreamers, we are activists working to make our reality. And as you often will hear, she mentioned, we are here because we want a better future for our children. And she said that over the last year, she's been working a lot with younger people. That's what she does as part of her role in her organization. And she says that she drew a lot of inspiration from the young people. She was actually in charge of recruiting for a peacebuilding program that she was running, recruiting Palestinian girls ages 15 to 17. And she was really worried that with the difficult situation that there might not be any interest in Palestinian girls participating in these programs and meeting with Israeli peers. And to her surprise, even in this really tough environment, the response was overwhelming, and they actually received a record number of applicants. So I wanted to share that to underscore that this is really seen as an avenue for women and Palestinian women, including to get their voice heard. So I want to turn to your question, the second part, which is a little bit of a detour, but I will answer that as well. So as you may be aware, the new administration, the Trump administration, has cut nearly 90% of America's international assistance. They've shut it down. This has had huge humanitarian impacts around the globe, and these cuts have also included $50 million that the US government had provided each year for Israeli-Palestinian civil society peacebuilding programs. This was the largest investment ever that the United States government had put into these programs, and they had just started to get up and running and were starting to bear fruit when these funding cuts came in. And I'm very sorry to hear that you are also facing that. We know that at least 78 NGOs who rely on the funding from the United States government for peacebuilding work in the region have been thrown into absolute financial turmoil. So collectively, from the information that we've gathered, we know that $21.4 million in costs are now at risk from just LMED members alone. And the dismantling of USAID generally really raises a lot of concerns about the long-term viability of US support for Israeli-Palestinian peacebuilding programs. And two of the programs that were funded included the $400,000 for Tomorrow's Women, $500,000 for Women Wage Peace, and this is a lot of money for grassroots civil society organizations. This allows them to expand their work and not necessarily have to focus so much on resource development, which is really a challenge for this field. So this has really been a reckless policy shift in my view, and has the potential to erase years of progress as organizations face layoffs, program suspensions, and even closures. So we're not taking this lying down. We are continuing to advocate with the administration. I do think that we have a lot of evidence of the impact of this work, that we can make a strong case to the administration that these are the kinds of programs that should be supported and should be turned back on. But it is a real challenge for the field right now. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And if you're talking with your members of Congress, if you're an American citizen, or if you have contacts with the administration, I think it would be very helpful if you could raise your concerns about this change in policy.
All right, thank you so much. Clearly, we understand the assignment. Call your lawmakers, get this done. They want to hear our voices, and it matters. I also want to remind you, we have a few questions left. We have a note card on your chair. If you have any questions, we'll have question and answer after. You can write it down, raise your hand. Talia and Darcy will come and collect them to you so that we can do a little question and answer after. So with that, Hanan, I want to throw this back to you. We understand that you are involved in a really exciting initiative to build the blueprint for the future of the region after the Gaza war. Can you share more with us about this crucial work and your role in it? Just a little light question there.
So yes, I take part in a very serious and long dialogue process together with the Palestinian side We are two delegations. I'm part of the Israeli delegation. I'm the only one woman in this group. So in our organization, in Itach-Ma'aki, we invite also and they call that we want more women around the decision making and more women involved with the negotiation, because we believe that women can bring and can bring more peace and so bring more better, not only but better perspective. She also can bring the needs for the children and the adults, not only for the women, for the second, another groups in our community and in the people in the area. From the second side, we have 3 women that they are also strong and very clever women. Actually, I'm not allowed to share more details about this initiative, but I really want to share with you because about my reflection and what I feel during these meetings, because it's not enough to raise our voices, because it's true that we bring another perspective. For example, when we are talking about security, the expert people that they are in our delegation, they talk about army, soldiers, and these things. And when women talk about security, we are also focused on economic and the education and the social security. And it's for them, it's very hard sometimes that you are destroy the process. And sometimes you feel that you are the witch in this room because you are not keep silent, because you want to speak up and you tell them that there is another sector and another subject that you should focus on in security, because even the education, there is impact in security when this group in our side educate, for the example, the extreme religion groups educate people against the Arab and against the Palestinian, and in Hamas educate the kids against the Jewish and against the Zionists and against the Israel. So we bring another perspective and another views, and for the experts people, the men, it's you are going against this process and you broke this process. And he came to me, one of them, and told me, Hanan, you are very clever, but we are very busy people, and we should continue and to get to our target and continue our process. This is the way. This we used to work for many years. So I said, okay, the peace is very important for me, and we want to stop the violence. Maybe I'm doing a mistake. I'm bothering them with other things. So for one day, I kept quiet. But he didn't understand that he deal with a Bedouin woman. I kept quiet, silent for one whole day. That's what it is that I called you. And I thought, okay, let's see how it's going on, because maybe I'm going to lose things if I speak up. Another woman, they are follow the process and the principles. The next day I came to them, I told them, sorry, yesterday I was silent, I didn't speak, and tried to follow this process, and I want to tell you something, that you should remember that these principles of the traditional sins of a trick 1.5 or 1.2 traction 2 is established by men. Through all history for many years, women wasn't involved to build this process and this system. This is for them. It's easy for you to follow this, and you find yourself. And for many years, you are doing this work, and you build it according to your needs. So I'm asking for you now to reform this system, and I ask you to build it according also to involve me. I want to find myself in this process. I don't want only to feel that I'm the witch in this room. I insist, I have a commitment not only to the Arab community in Israel. I felt in this moment that I have a commitment to the Arab and Jewish women in Israel, the women in Gaza and the women in the West Bank and in the world, that I called for them, you should take a break for 1 hour and please, let's think about the system and the process. It's not enough only to bring women around the table. We want also the women to feel that they find themselves in this system. Why I'm sharing this with you? Because we can do it all only when we are work together in solidarity. It's true that I came from the Bedouin community, from the Arab community, and there is another Jewish community, and there is women's organization on the world. We can change the world and build peace in the world if we work together. There is something in common. We bring peace for everybody. We want to stop the violence, and women can do it together if we work together. And the second one also, by the way, I told you that someone told me that you are bothering us. He is a very clever man. He has a long years experience. And I told him, I'm not going to give up. I want you also to be my partner. Because you have a power. And I want to use this power to strengthen this system and make it more viable and good also for women. And this is the situation.
And you are in great company. You are in a room of many women who don't back down when we're told that it's the right place to do. So welcome. No. So Daphna, let's see. Daphna, it sounds as though women are increasingly involved in peace building at the level of civil society and academia. But as you shared earlier, this is not reflected in the level of political power. What can be done to translate action into influence? Do you want my mic, or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
What can be done? I'm calling now for, in Hebrew it sounds better. In Hebrew we have a role in the military that is called tomech lechima, which is combat supporter. These are the soldiers that are not actually in combat, but they support the combat soldiers. And the combat soldiers need them. So now I'm trying to say in Israel, tomech manhiga. That means a female leader supporter. I think that we know enough about how hard it is for women to enter politics and how hard it is for them to survive in politics. And we have many examples of wonderful women who made it. They got into politics, they got the position, and then they were attacked by hate speech and criticism and didn't have the support even from their own party members. So now I'm calling for each leader, female leader, who is willing to enter politics. And then we know that this is already a sacrifice because it's much easier to create another NGO. And I'm saying it as someone who was, I created one of the founders of Itach-Ma'aki and now in my own NGO. And I think that in retrospective, we have to realize that we made a mistake. We established too many NGOs and put too few women in formal politics. And we need women in formal politics. So to do that, we have to learn the evidence of how hard it is, to prepare, and for each woman who is willing to go into this very harsh field, to build a whole network of support. It has to be financial support, it had to be collegial support. She has to know that she has an army in social media that echoes her messages. She needs to know that women and men will open doors for her, will create a space in which she can come and talk. She will be voted for, and we all have to the fact that we are all biased. Even, the queens of feminism, we criticize female leaders harsher than we criticize male leaders. So we have to know that and combat that in ourselves and allow them to make mistakes, because all people, all leaders make mistakes. And it's unbearable that the first mistake a female leader does haunts her for her entire career. So that would be my way of doing it. Another thing I want to mention, you said that I'm a CEDAW member. I'm a member, an expert member in the UN Committee for Women's Equality. And our recent General Recommendation 40, calls for parity, 50-50. And we have examples in Israel where that works. For example, when there is a conference, an event, a cultural event, any public event, we have a colleague called Yaeli Chieli, and she counts heads. That's what she does. She wake in the morning, she see what's going on, and she counts heads. And if there's not 50-50, she raises her voice, and she recruits us all. And event after event is changed. After the program is published, women are getting a role in these events. And now we are calling male colleagues. If you are invited to an event, ask how many women are going to be in your panel. And if it's not 50-50, do not agree to participate. So we have to translate this awareness. We have it in academia, we have it in culture, into politics. A party without a zipper system, without 50-50, is not a legitimate party. It shouldn't be funded, it shouldn't be voted for.
Thank you so much. Hanan, Daphna, Kari, thank you for your insight and expertise. Your work remains incredibly important because, as each of you have said, we cannot reach lasting peace without leadership of women, including the women like you. So, we are going to move on to our question and answer. I'm going to bring Nancy Kaufman up to ask our first question as we are going through some more questions in the back. If you have any questions on your note cards, raise your hand and our staff will come and grab them.
Wow, let's give them another round of applause. Amazing women. So I know there's a bunch of Kennedy School graduates in this audience. So as a Kennedy School graduate at Harvard, we learned about getting up on the balcony. So I'm gonna ask you all to get up on the balcony right now and ask each of you, what gives you hope? What gives you hope?
Any of you can jump in or I can pass it down the line.
What gives me hope is whenever we're able to have Israeli and Palestinian peace builders, so again, we have a network of organizations. So it's they're organizations in your own organization, you know the people, but it's a loose network and a growing network. And I am always so amazed at and I used this word before, but I think it's apt, the bravery of people who, in their own communities, are willing to say things and to stand together in the pursuit of peace, because that is their principled view of the world. And even when it's hard, and especially when it's hard, they continue this work. And I find a lot of hope in that, and they inspire me all the time.
I want to tell you about really an experience that I will never forget. I was in Geneva in the UN on October 9th, 2023, 2 days after October 7th. I think I would have not gone to Geneva if I understood what happened. It was I just didn't understand. And I was there for 3 weeks. That's the session, and I felt so hopeless and so helpless, and so together with two colleagues, Ronit Levin-Schnorr and Daphna Yoel, we have established the Day After the War Forum. And I wasn't as involved as both of them because there's a limit to how many hats I can wear. But for more than a year, they have run this amazing project. And I can talk about that for, I don't know, 2 hours. But going back to hope, what we have done is to learn from past conflicts. And we interviewed and we webinared with the best experts in the world about, for example, Japan and Germany post-World War II. You can ask yourself how these two countries that were, you know, on what side during World War II, became these peaceful leaders of the world, both Japan and Germany. How did that happen? And we learned about it. How did the conflict in Ireland ended? The Tamilis in Asia, how was that resolved? And we learned that the worst conflicts, the most hopeless conflicts were resolved. It can be happen, and there are conditions of how that can be happen, and we learned. So that is one thing. You know, the history that conflicts that you cannot believe can end gave me hope. I draw hope from the peace agreements with Egypt and Jordan and the Emirates. It's not a very warm peace now, but it's not war. And since we know what war can look like, it's valuable and we should treasure it. I draw hope from the amazing Israeli women that I've told you about. It's unbelievable, the strength that these women have. And after a week here in CSW, the new slogan I'm trying to, it's already on my Facebook. I'm telling Israelis now that hope in this really very, very challenging era is a collective resistance effort.
So if you are asked about hope, I found out myself that my position in my life is to create hope. Because since I was a little girl, every dream I dare to dream, I face with the same response. It's impossible, you cannot do it, you are not allowed. For many reasons. It's because I am a girl, and a woman, and belong to the Bedouin community, traditional custom and religion family. 9 sisters and 2 brothers. No, women cannot go to get education. So to see me now that I get education.
She's my PhD student.
Even I was a little girl, I was dreamed to be a lawyer, and everybody around me said no. And I became a lawyer after 15 years old, after years. To be honest, also that the hope is also what we did also with the women in our organization, in the Bedouin community. If we, I would like to say a little something background about the Bedouin community, that we have 300,000 people live in south of Israel, and women in this village and community face many challenges in the traditional community and culture, and also political challenges. So women during these years in the unrecognized villages that we don't have any basic service, no electricity, no water, no basic service, and in the other hand they don't have any access to education and to work. And after 20 years work with these villages also, and with the recognized villages, we work with thousands of women that they are more involved in the education system, and they are work, and even that they are now participated in the course in training for leadership and become
Local governance.
Local governance, the Bedouin women. This is the first one. The second hope is like also from Khaled. Khaled, she is one of the in the Shmiyat movement in women leadership in the unrecognized villages. That she during the war she lost 55% from Gaza during the war from her family, and she insists to work with us in the Relief Center, the shared Arab Jewish Center, Emergency Center. A third one with Anav, שם משפחה? Sing.
That's hard even for me.
Anav. She did not give up, and she every day she's a protest.
Her son is in captivity. She's leading the protest.
She's leading Anav,
Yeah.
yes. And last time she said that even if we have women leadership around the decision maker, we could getting back all the hostages. So from all of them, we should also believe that we don't need only to hope. We should create to hope, and we should bring the power outside. That I believe that every woman, she's very strong and she has power inside. She needs the mechanism and the access, and we should provide for this woman the mechanism and the access and the opportunities, not only to work and to get education, to be also a political leadership, because only in this situation and this situation we will change and we will bring peace in our area and in the world.
Inshallah.
Thank you for that. So, I have a few questions from the audience. We're gonna get through as many as possible, but I'm gonna be honest, we probably only won't have one or two. So, our first question is, you mentioned this CRSV and the GBV against Israeli women and girls. Can you please provide some reflection on the UN report published this week on sexual violence against Palestinian civilians in Gaza? How can we as civil society promote an intersectional gender lens in analyzing the conflict, regardless if you are a woman living in Israel or in Palestine? So, anybody here who wants to take that, by all means.
Yes, you have the red pamphlet now. You saw the blue one, now it's the red one. At the Israel Women's Network, what we are preoccupied now is to create an international protocol that will look at sex-based violence during conflict. Because what we have learned is that Israel, for example, was completely unprepared for such atrocities. And important forensic evidence was not collected. So what do we do to learn what happens? Of course, to prevent it. Again, going back to what do we do to prevent war? How do we educate warriors that this, you don't do any of that? And if you do, you are severely punished, of course. And then if God forbids it happens, what is the procedure to investigate? And again, from Israeli experience, how do you do that? Protecting women's survivors' right for privacy, for dignity, giving them back the agency when, if at all, to tell their story. We have no right to demand women to disclose any information that they don't want to disclose. So all that should be part of, again, an international effort, first to prevent it, then if it happens, to deal with it in a feminist way.
Thank you. So I have one more question, which is, as I was reading through, I want to make sure we get to this one. Have we considered having an all-women peace negotiation and then pushing the agenda on the men? It seems that may be what we need to do to get the results that we need, that we should make the agenda and cut out the men, just like they're trying to do to the women. Yes.
So, in speaking with and brainstorming with those in the State Department, not recently, but in years past, about how do you get women at the table when they have not been invited to the table. And they gave an example of how they did this in Sudan. So in Sudan, they had a U.S. Special Representative, Tom Perriello, who understood the importance of having women involved in the peace negotiations. And what he did is precisely what you described. Basically, not he, but he pushed very hard from his diplomatic perch that this was important, and then got women's groups together so that they could create their own agenda, even if they weren't invited into the room. And what they did is that they brought that agenda into the room because they had top-level diplomatic support saying this is an absolute priority. So while it's not the same as being in the room, it is certainly something we can look at, and I think, and to model. I think it's and to campaign, honestly, like to demonstrate how absurd it is that there are no women involved right now in any of these negotiations.
Okay, thank you for that. So Hanan, this next question from the audience is for you. You mentioned that Arab women face double discrimination from their own society and from the country. Can you share your personal story on how you got into leadership as a Bedouin woman in Israel?
Okay. From my personal story, you can understand more about the challenges and the struggle and the obstacles that women, Arab women, can unfortunately deal with it.
There is a film now. There's a whole docu-film about Hanan. You can watch it. Thank you.
So, as I said, that I belong to a traditional Bedouin family. I have 9 sisters and 2 brothers, and I am the youngest from all my family. The boy, for sure, one of my 2 brothers, he is a lawyer, and the second one is a businessman. All my sisters, unfortunately, they didn't manage to get education. It's not because they are not clever. They are more clever. I say always, they are very, very clever, more clever than me. But they didn't did what I did. The same thing that I did in Geneva now. So I refused to accept the reality that I cannot go to school because I was only 13 years old. And I want to get education and go to high school.
Hello, everybody attending the CSW. Quick reminder, it's 10 to 8. Try to get everybody out the meetings by 8 o'clock. Thank you. Have a good night.
We're a bunch of strong women and allies. We're just gonna keep going.
So when I said that I want to get to go to school, to the high school, and to go to the university, they put for me 4 conditions. Well, the first one, for sure, to put hijab to cover my hair. The second one, to get married with my cousin. The third one is if you are going to the university, you are going to be only a teacher and work with women. And the third one is to go back from Lakia, from my family, to Ben Gurion University. I wanted so much to study in Jerusalem University, but I couldn't. But again, since so from this period, I developed my negotiation skills with the family. So I agree that on all the conditions, and I went to the school, to the university. And when I arrived at the university, I told my sheikh and the family, the leader of the tribe, because the Bedouin community, you are not you not only took a permission from your father or brothers, you also from the sheikh, the leaders of the tribe. So I spoke with him. I told him I cannot. I want to. I hate the hijab. I cannot continue. And tell me no. You should put the hijab because it means that you are under control and you get a good girl. And I told him that this is a problem. I don't want to send this message. I don't want. I feel very sad. So I told him I am going to take it off. After that, I get married. When he asked from me to get married only with my cousin, I went to my cousin. I told him, please tell my uncle that you don't want to get married with me because I'm going to make your life very hard. Because I know that I am a very crazy woman, I have dreams, and I don't want to be silent, and when I want to be an active and a producer. And that's what he did. He convinced my family, and I got education from Ben Gurion University. And yes, I work with the women, but to empower them, to bring them to the decision making table, and that's what we did.
Beautiful. Hanan, thank you. I could not think of a better question to end our question and answer on. Nobody can follow that up. So I want to thank our incredible panelists. Your work is an inspiration and your voices are essential in building a more just and peaceful future. Thank you to Israel Women's Network for their co-sponsorship of this program. I also want to thank NCJW's Associate Director of Government Relations and Advocacy, Talia Steinberg, for not only being a complete rock star and planning this, but for all she did to make this program happen. She did lots of things that I want to invite Talia to join us now to close our time together.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I won't keep you much longer. The guy on the speaker really wants us out. First, I just want to say, given the importance of this day for a lot of us who are observing Shabbat or Ramadan or the end of Purim, we thought it'd be nice to close our time together by praying and hoping for peace together. Over, you can't really see it, the UN. The UN is right there. Our event is part of CSW, Commission on the Status of Women, so we thought this would be an important moment to do this together. I invite you to join in reading the English translation of the Prayer of the Mothers, a song and a plea for peace. We have just passed those out to you, so you should all have one. Born from Women Wage Peace, this powerful anthem is a product of collaboration between Israeli and Palestinian women, united in their shared will to end war and build a future of peace. We take this opportunity to pray the same. Please join me in reading together if you are comfortable. A whisper of ocean wind is blowing from far away, and laundry is flapping to the shadow of the wall. Between the sky and the land, there are people who want to live in peace. Don't give up, keep dreaming of peace and prosperity. When will the walls of fear melt? When will I return from exile? And my gates will open to what is truly good. The walls of fear will someday melt, and I will return from exile. My gates shall open to what is truly good. From the north to the south, from the west to the east, hear the prayer of the mothers. Bring them peace, bring them peace. Light is rising from peace to the prayer of the mothers for peace. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I do want to let you know, if you haven't heard the full version of that, look it up on YouTube or on their website. It has an amazing music video that goes with it and is truly empowering. So I'll go back to my scripted remarks now. Thank you for being here this evening and for joining us together to pray in hope, in grief, and in resilience. As war continues on and families continue to mourn, we must hold on to the prayer and make it a call to action. So with that, we want to thank everybody for coming to us at 6:30 on a Friday evening. We get thanks. And with that, have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.